A room full of Brits sneering and prepared to dunk on Trump. Here comes a wall of American resolve. This is the kind of live TV that you don't want to miss. From the predictable virtue signalling of Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, to the frantic attempts of the panel to depict half of America as backward, let us break it down. You don't want to miss it.
More pointed reaction here, Jennifer, from Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, and there's certainly been some toing and froing in terms of exchanges between Donald Trump and Sadiq Khan in the past. An important reminder, he tweets today, for Londoners: our city is and will always be for everyone. We will always be pro-women, pro-diversity, pro-climate and pro-human rights. These are some of the values that will continue to bind us together as Londoners. How do you react to that?
Is that his reaction to Donald Trump?
Yes.
That's insane. I don't know what he's trying to imply. And by the way, I think he missed a trick a few years ago when he didn't want Trump to come to London. He could have invited him, showed him, what a fabulous city this is. All of us, 300 different languages being spoken. So that's an insane comment.
Sadiq Khan was the first. In the wisdom that truly knows no bounds, he twittered off a gem that sounded like some shallow motivational poster. London is pro-women, pro-diversity, pro-climate, pro-human rights. Wow, and so original from Sadiq. Maybe next he'll give us a statement saying water is wet. It's the sort of vague, feel-good nonsense such politicians love. They think it says something while saying nothing at all. Jennifer's reaction? That's insane. And she's exactly right. It isn't those values that are insane. It's that ridiculous thought process of acting like London owns them. Typical.
Let me get Sarah
divisive.
I really don't think that's insane. I think that's Sadiq just saying this is London and that's what he represents and that's what he was elected to represent, and he was elected on that mandate.
Represents too,
that's absolutely fine, but I think he can still have a difference of opinion. He hasn't resorted into insults as you just have there with his comments. So
Well, I was shocked by it. It seemed quite divisive, and that's a very strange reaction.
Sarah then intervenes to come to the rescue of Khan. And yes, Sarah, such representation of London also does not denote intent to disregard viewpoints, contrary to those one may have. You understand. Her attempt to call Jennifer out, insulting, however, falls firmly flat when considered in the light of the fact that the panel spent most of its time seriously insulting Trump and his voters. Quite an art in hypocrisy.
I think if we're going to talk about divisive comments, we can just have a look at Donald Trump's tweet history.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, look, free speech.
Look, I feel like we know that when history looks back on this moment, we can hold our head up high and say that we are on the right side of history.
Oh.
Well, first of all, I want to compliment Kristen and John Scardino and their entire group. Their ground game in the UK is outstanding. They did so much for Get Out the Vote. I know that. So huge compliments to them. They're wildly organized.
But she clinches her darting snipe by immediately pivoting to comment on anything and everything in Trump's Twitter history. Because, that's for dealing with all things when you suddenly mustn't mention names. British left people just crave it. Give me a break. Who scripts lines like this? The same people who do awards show speeches. It's a typical play. When you don't have a sturdy argument, you point fingers at moral victory. But as Jennifer sits half the time in silence, likely thinking how absurd this is, the winner is clear.
Just your reaction, Sarah, to the result.
I think, like a lot of people, a lot of us would have wanted something different this morning, but we are where we are, and I think the Democrats have a question to ask now themselves, to look internally and ask why it is someone as eminently qualified as Kamala Harris lost to somebody, as Gary had said, who has a convicted criminal, has mocked disabled people, has worsened women's rights, and has accused immigrants of eating dogs. How is it we've got into this position where actually that speaks to people more than perhaps what the long-term investment of the economy and this strategy for that in a country?
Now we have the 2024 election results being talked about, and Sarah, it seems, gets back up again and lists Trump's sins. Convicted criminal, mocked disabled people, worsened women's rights, accused immigrants of eating dogs. Oh, actually, yes, she pulls that one out. It sounds like she got it straight out of a Democratic Party press release. Then comes her finish. Well, Sarah, maybe because Kamala Harris is about as popular as a root canal. Even the Democrats don't seem to like her much, but sure, let's blame it all on Trump voters being ignorant. That's a winning strategy. What is remarkable here is how utterly unoriginal Sarah's argument is. The same old saw. Trump is bad, his voters worse. Meanwhile, Jennifer looks completely unaffected because she knows pointing fingers will not affect the fact that Trump has found resonance among millions of Americans. That is truly the part the British elite just doesn't get.
I shake my head. I think it's utter nonsense, frankly, that he surrounds himself with people who have differing points of view. In fact, that was one of the stark differences between the two candidates, is we know that Donald Trump dismisses people who try to offer a different point of view, and then he goes out onto his Truth Social and disparages them as well. So I think that it's an absolute farce.
Kristin then jumps into claiming that his leadership style, with the acts of firing as an alternative to delegated responsibility for any disagreeable government action, includes cursing those fired in Truth Social. Is that supposed to be some earth-shattering new information? He has been doing that since before she heard of him. What? A point against him. Not a feature, it should be. He does not forgive betrayal, and he doesn't mince words in calling people out. Love him, hate him. That's at least consistent. This is what Kristin tries to use against Trump, thereby failing. She tries to use the fact that Trump does not care about what may be said or speculated about his followers in the media. Spoiler alert, though, they don't. The very traits that Kristin deems failures appear to be the ones coveted by his voters: a refusal to back down and betray loyalty to the base, and willingness to attend a fight. But that is a concept the panel just can't quite wrap their heads around.
Looking hugely sceptical.
I am
you
very
look like you're about to jump across the table at me.
No, I didn't get that much sleep. The thing when we saw that speech, that rambling speech, he made Boris Johnson look almost coherent during that speech, I have to say. He talks about healing the nation, and then in the next breath talks about the enemy within and attacking the enemy within. And when he's talking about the enemy within, he was talking about people like you, Joe. He was talking about CNN. He was talking about mainstream media, which is there to hold governments to account and to spread light onto issues that he is talking about. That is a really, really concerning movement.
This is shortly followed by the panel's discussion about Trump's enemy within speech, whence they gagged in a hugely dramatic fashion. One member even goes so far as to declare that the speech was on a par with the worst of Boris Johnson, which was possibly not coincidental given the drunken Shakespeare enthusiast sound of Johnson's speeches.
But I kind of wonder whether, if you go out into the Midwest and sort of some of these more slightly backward parts of America, whether or not there's a
Excuse me?
Well,
That's where I'm from, so be careful.
with no disrespect meant to anybody, but if you have a sort of
Might have to answer,
slightly old-fashioned type of way of sorry, I'm not trying to.
We're still on the same team, Kristin and Americans.
Sure. But is there a more old-fashioned sort of 1950s view of this in some parts of America, or is it just a very peculiar place?
The pièce de résistance is when this bold male panellist deems some portions of America as backward. Not to worry, though, he hastens to add, no disrespect, as if that excuses anything. Newsflash, it doesn't. He tries to soothe the hurt by asserting that some parts of America have old-fashioned views. Nice try, but the damage is done already. The smell of arrogance is palpable. Picture a scenario where an American Republican went to British TV and termed rural England backward. Such would have raised an uproar. Jennifer wouldn't even need to answer. Silence speaks volumes. Here is where the elite panellist is exposed. The panel doesn't realise how out of touch they sound. This is why Trump won. People are tired of being talked down to by smug elites who think they know better. Jennifer ruled the roost in this panel. Even as the Brits indulged themselves by giving acclaim to their own selves for being woke, she simply stayed cool, confident, and unapologetically American. There was no need for raised voices or throwing cheap insults. She let their own words expose their hypocrisy. Sadiq Khan's tweet? Not much, merely empty posturing. The panel's critique of Trump? Somehow predictable and rather lazy. And that jab at Middle America? Pure elitism. Jen came prepared, and the Brits were clearly out of their depth. In the end, it's really not even close. Jennifer, 1. Woke Brits, 0. This was not a debate, but a masterclass of owning the room. Take notes, people. We'll be watching this one repeatedly for quite some time.